Welcome on into First Pitch here on WagerTalk TV. A nice, healthy 15-game card today, and we'll have plays for you in exactly one-third of them. We're going to be talking a little Blue Jays at the Orioles, Pirates taking on the Cards, the Rangers and D-backs, the Nationals at the slumping Yankees, and the Mariners visiting the White Sox. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and breaking them down alongside me, got a great crew on a Tuesday. Bryan Power, Marco D'Angelo, and Gold Sheets, Eric Pauly. If you like what we do here, all we ask you to do, hit that subscribe button because we got baseball playoffs right around the corner. And that coupled with football, man, you don't want to miss any action here on the Wager Talk TV YouTube channel. Bryan Power, let's get it started with you, man, and get right into it. Talk a little Blue Jays and Orioles. And as far as this season goes, man, the O's have just dominated this division rivalry. What is it, 8-2 now against the Blue Jays? So what does it come down to, Bryan? A case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, like our friend, or I guess my friend Joe Ranieri likes to say?
I had dinner with Joe not once but twice, Dan, if you could believe that, in Vegas. So if anyone felt the earth fall off its axis over the weekend, that was why. But I would concur with our colleague, Mr. Ranieri's take on if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's two key records I want to share here. One is Baltimore as a favorite. Now, if you can believe it, Dan, the Orioles, despite having the best record in the American League, have been underdogs in more games this season than they've been favored. But when they are favored, as they are Tuesday, they've gone 41-16. Now, they've cleaned up in both roles, favorite or underdog, but obviously the win percentage a lot higher as a favorite. No team's got a better record as a favorite in all of baseball. The second record I want to share, though, is Toronto against division opponents. They're 11-23 versus the rest of the AL East, down 20 units. Excluding Oakland and Colorado, the teams who have the worst records in each league, that's the worst division record in all of baseball that Toronto has. And what you know, it does include a 2-8 record versus Baltimore. So I think the numbers are pretty clear here. Grayson Rodriguez is on the mound for the Orioles as well. And since being called back up, he's been lights out. 2.35 ERA his last 5 starts. He's not a big strikeout guy, but he's only allowed 8 runs total in 30 2/3 innings. And I know Kikuchi, who's starting for the Blue Jays, he's been even stingier over his last 5 starts. And he was on the mound for one of Toronto's 2 wins over Baltimore this year, opposite Rodriguez. However, that was as a home favorite, Dan. Kikuchi still has a 5.40 ERA in his 11 career appearances versus the Orioles, who, oh, by the way, 29-14 this season when they face a left-handed starter. Cannot ignore any of these records. The Orioles would, in fact, be my lean here for Tuesday's series opener.
Getting the big game breakdown out of the way there. We'll also be hearing about maybe a pitcher prop in that one coming up when we talk with Eric Pauly of the Gold Sheet. But sandwiched between a little Toronto and Blue Jay action is Marco D'Angelo talking some Texas and Arizona. And Marco, in this one, it's Gallen and Gray on the mound in game 2. And I think you might have a feeling about these pitchers early on in this matchup. So how are you going to be betting this one, Marco?
Well, Dan, before I jump into this one, since Bryan mentioned that he had dinner with Joe while he was in Vegas, I got to mention my first encounter with Joe was on Friday. And every Friday, guys, if you're in the Las Vegas area, stop by the Westgate. I do a live radio show with T.C. Martin, who happens to be the play-by-play announcer for the Las Vegas Aces. And we're in the middle of a live radio show, and I've got my back turned. I don't see people coming from behind me. And all of a sudden, I hear this loud yell at the top of his lungs, and it keeps getting closer as it gets to this podium where we're at. Is that Marco D'Angelo? Yeah, that was Joe making an appearance on the live radio show for me. And the host of the show, T.C. Martin, he turned every color but anything normal. He didn't know what was going on. So thank you, Joe Ranieri, for that. But in this game, guys, this is a spot where we're looking at Texas and Arizona. Texas right now, they're in their worst slump of the season. They've lost 5 games in a row. But more importantly, if you look at it, in 4 of those 5 games, they were held to 3 runs or less. That's a big problem tonight because they're going to be facing Zach Gallen. And Gallen's been phenomenal all year, but he has been absolutely lights out when he pitches at home. 12 home starts. He's got an ERA of 1.82. And if you look at the last 3 starts, he's gone 19 innings and he's allowed just 3 runs total in those 19 innings. So you look at his current form, you look at Texas, the way they're playing right now and having trouble to score, that's going to be pointing me to the under. Well, then I look at Texas, and we got John Gray on the mound for Texas, and he has been razor sharp in his last 2, allowing just 1 run over 14 innings of work. But more importantly, you hear me talk about it all the time, strikeout to walk ratio. In those 2 games, he had a strikeout to walk ratio of 11-2, telling me he had total control of his full arsenal in that one. I am going to look to the under first 5 innings. I don't want to involve the bullpens. I like the 2 starting pitchers. I think they hold both teams at bay. And here's an interesting stat for you with Arizona. In interleague play this year, they're 21-9 to the under. So they're going under for the full game. That also helps us here for the first 4 or first 5 to go under 4.5. 2 hot pitchers, 1 team in a scoring slump. Let's go under, guys. That's my big game breakdown.
I always love a first 5 breakdown. Take the bullpens out of the equation, even if the trends are backing out that full game under. Hop below in the comments and let us know any plays that you're eyeing in the first 5. Do you agree with Marco looking towards that under 4.5? We would love to hear from you here right there below. While you're down there, why not throw a like? And if you hit subscribe, you'll never miss any of the shows here, like the Gold Sheet TV preview that's dropping later today. Eric Pauly joining me from thegoldsheet.com. And man, I'm still sweating from some of those hot takes that we drop on this week's NFL edition of the Gold Sheet TV. So head on over there and disagree with Eric and I. But first, we heard Bryan's thoughts about the side and the O's and the Jays matchup. You have a little bit more you want to talk as far as the pitching perspective goes. Eric, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Yeah, so first, the Gold Sheet NFL show Dan and I did earlier today will be up shortly after this show, and you'll hear some spicy, hot NFL takes that Dan and I broke down. But sticking to the bases right now, I am looking at Grayson Rodriguez, the starter for the Orioles, to go under 5.5 strikeouts. I got it earlier at FanDuel at plus 126. And Rodriguez has been very good in his career so far. He had a couple of hiccups. He was sent back down to the minors. And after getting recalled from the minors, he's been actually pitching very well. And this season, he's already faced this Toronto Blue Jays team twice. And in both of those starts, he racked up 6 Ks. And his last start against the Blue Jays were actually earlier this month on the 2nd. And this is more so a fade of just how many times is a rookie starter going to get to a team, especially a team that is relatively competitive in the Toronto Blue Jays. So he is, as Bryan mentioned earlier, Rodriguez is a good pitcher and he's obviously ascending, but he is not a pure strikeout pitcher with any real put away stuff yet. And while the Blue Jays, like any MLB team during the 162-game marathon, have their stretches of being a high K rate team, they're actually on a K rate decline as we speak. And another thing to mention is when Grayson Rodriguez has been pitching at home so far this season, his strikeout rate drops just a little over 20%, and his FIP shoots up to 5.4, and his batting average again shoots up to 308. So he has not actually performed well at all at home this season. And then going back to the Blue Jays again, every team in the MLB, regardless of how contact heavy you are, goes through some strikeout plateaus and lows. And right now we're in more of a plateau. So since August 1st, Toronto was 17th in K rate against righties on the road. And over the last week, that K rate is just simply just a 21% flat rate. And again, going against a player that they've seen 3 times, that will be the 3rd time they've seen him. Also seen him earlier this month. And, we're talking about a rookie. We're not talking about a crafty veteran who maybe has different ways to get him out. I'm expecting Toronto to expect what's coming, and you're getting plus money on this bet. So Rodriguez under 5.5.
Looking towards the under the 5.5 Ks at a nice plus money price. Make sure you check out thegoldsheet.com or head right on over to wt.buzz/GS. That's right. The oldest publication in sports betting is right here on WagerTalk.com. And Brian Power, man. So since you had dinner twice with our man Joe Ranieri, you're on an 11-3-1 run. So I'm just saying there may be some correlation there, hanging out with the great Joe Ranieri, or it might be correlation of why there was an earthquake and a hurricane that happened in California at the same time. So hell hasn't quite frozen over yet, Brian. Go ahead before we get into this Pirates and Cards game.
Well, I'll just say it was my birthday is the reason that got the run going, but I'm sure Joe would find a way to take credit for it nonetheless, I'm sure. Yes, but yes.
I figured you at least deserved a rebuttal there after we've hit our quota of Joe Ranieri mentions here on First Pitch for the week. So let's talk a little Pirates and Cardinals here. And Brian, the problem is, though, nobody told the Pirates this series doesn't matter. Because it was 11-1 yesterday in game one. So I guess it's as simple as they're playing the Cards again tonight. They stay in hot.
Well, Dan, this is obviously a far worse season than usual in St. Louis, who has not finished last in a division since 1990. And that was back when each league had only two divisions and they were in the NL East. Well, allow me to be the first to report that here in 2023, the Cardinals are currently last in the NL Central with a 55-71 record. And as you mentioned, it went from bad to worse yesterday, an 11-1 loss in the series opener here in Pittsburgh. The Cardinals' record in August is not horrible. It's 8-11 overall, but they only have 3 wins against teams that aren't named Oakland, Kansas City, and Colorado, who are better known as the 3 worst teams in baseball. So I'm not really impressed at all by St. Louis. I don't think that there's any reason that they're going to turn it around after last night. And the real key is Adam Wainwright being on the mound, right? You just cannot back this guy right now. He's 0-7 with a 12.72 ERA since his last win, which was back on June 17th. For the season, he has an 8.42 ERA and 2.01 whip and just 2 quality starts in 16 trips to the mound. He was better than normals last time out, but just to show how bad he's been, his ERA in August is still north of 16. So even though, he had that one good start, I'm not thinking he's going to do it 2 in a row. And for the Pirates, you got Johan Oviedo. He's been a little less consistent than what I'd like to see, but he's clearly the better starter in this matchup. He had a 3-start stretch a little while ago where he allowed just 2 runs in 20 innings. And I think we're going to get the good Oviedo tonight. I say that based on the fact that he turned in 7 strong innings with 10 strikeouts, just 1 run allowed earlier this year. And oh, by the way, the Pirates 6-2 against St. Louis this season, including a perfect 4-for-4 at PNC Park. If you want to do just a first 5 bet based on what I laid out with the starting pitchers, I'm not going to argue with you. But Dan, Pirates full game is my best bet for the show today.
Yeah, it would help if I was muted there. But no, Brian Power with a great breakdown there. And we had some folks in the comments mentioning that Brian's really just milking this birthday. And it's apropos because it's actually WagerTalk's birthday. So an apropos segue for you, my man, as Tuesday through Sunday, you can get 50% off any daily package that's over $15 using code BIRTHDAY9. And it's even better because Marco D'Angelo has a 4% interleague play up right now. And in the last 9 days, 15-8, over $1,000, 1,500, over 1,500 to be exact in net profit over these last 9 days. So you can use that birthday code BIRTHDAY9 and get 50% off the play for today. Or NFL plays right around the corner, Marco. One heck of a deal there, my man. So let's talk a little Washington and Yankees because Yankees are staring at a 9-game losing streak. A 9-game losing streak for the New York Yankees. Like, I have to repeat that because it hasn't happened in over 4 decades. They just got shut out by the Nats. So a best bet in this one, I'm hoping you're not catching a falling knife. How are you betting this one, Marco?
No, I'm absolutely not catching a falling knife, staying away from the Yankees and actually kind of going against them in a way here where we're going to take a look at the team total. We got Washington coming in here. Washington's playing their best baseball right now. They've actually won 7 of their last 9 games. As odd as it is to say the Yankees are on a 9-game losing streak, Washington this season winning 7 out of 9 is just as rare. But they are, and they're doing it by scoring runs. This is a team that in those 9 games have scored 4 runs or more in 7 of the games. In fact, over the last 7 games, they're averaging 6.1 run per game. And that success should continue tonight because they're going to be facing Carlos Rodon, who has just had an absolute nightmare of a season. In his last 3 starts, he's got an ERA of 7.29. He's got a whip of 1.62. And I'll tell you how you get that whip of 1.62. You have a strikeout to walk ratio of 14-9. Horrible strikeout to walk ratio. You can't be putting that many people on base every inning and not have bad things happen. And that's exactly what has been happening. In fact, the Yankees, over their last 7 games, they've allowed 5 runs or more in 6 of those 7 games. And Washington this season, when they face a team with a losing record, they're averaging 5 runs a game versus those teams. And here's an interesting stat for you on the Yankees. They have had 22 days off this season. The game following an off day, their opponent is averaging 5.4 runs against them. Now, we're looking at a team total of 3.5. And I think this is one of the inefficiencies in the market. They make these team totals because you've got a team that's a big favorite, the Yankees, and they're only a favorite, guys, because of the name. They're not playing like a team that should be this favorite. So the team total split on this game is 5.5 and 3.5. That's just not correct. This is a lot of value with taking Washington over the 3.5. For everything that I said, we're going to take team total Washington over 3.5. And if you remember last week on a show, I did the exact same thing with Washington in that same situation against I believe it was your Philadelphia Phillies, Dan, and we got the easy win with that team total. Looking forward again today.
Love it. Terrific breakdown there, looking towards the over and also pointing out some potential market inefficiency. So a little gold nugget in there. Obviously gives you the play on the game, but teach a man to fish and he can eat for life. Break down those big favorites and look at inefficiencies in the team total market. Awesome breakdown there by Marco D'Angelo. Hop below in the comments. Let us know if you agree, if you disagree. Eric Pauly going to get the final word here for goldsheet.com and the final word on first pitch for today. And there is hot, Eric, and then there is Mariners hot. 7-game win streak. Yesterday, they scored 2 touchdowns and get the extra point through to win 14-2. So any reason we should think that the White Sox are going to be the team to finally throw some ice water on Seattle, or are you just riding it till the wheels fall off?
I'm riding Seattle until the wheels fall off. Now, I'm somebody who has a couple of tickets on the Astros to win the AL West that I've accumulated as kind of the Rangers built their lead and now thought I was in the clear of Seattle, but obviously not. They're roaring back and are looking like, the team they were advertised to be to begin the season. This is a team, of course, that gave the Astros a run for their money in the playoffs, made the playoffs last year and had such high expectations coming into the season. But looking at the starter for Seattle, I am a huge fan of this kid, Bryan Wu. We saw what Luis Castillo did to the Chicago White Sox lineup last night. And of course, I'm not saying Wu is as good as Castillo, who just made himself a very nice additional argument for why he should be a Cy Young this year. When you're looking at peripherals, Castillo and Wu have a ton of things in common. I'm not sure if you saw this on Twitter, but something that Castillo did last night is he threw 42 straight fastballs, just basically saying to the White Sox, like, you're not hitting my fastball. Bryan Wu on the season throws 49% four-seam fastballs compared to Castillo's 43%. And if you take a look at some percentile rankings on Baseball Savant, Wu has the edge over Castillo in average exit velocity, hard hit percentage, barrel percentage, expected slugging percentage, and expecting batting average, meaning that when Wu is on, like, he has the makings of a pitcher that looks like he's going to be a perennial stud in the making. And this is a kid who came up directly from Double-A this season. So just from that point of view, you have a kind of carbon copy pitcher from last night to tonight, and we saw how they could not hit Castillo whatsoever last night. And Wu's also played this White Sox team earlier in the season, making, I think it was his 3rd start of the year. Wu rung up 9 White Sox in that game. And I know I'm just kind of focusing solely in on Wu, and this is because when it comes to the rest of the Mariners, we know they're absolutely raking right now. We know the White Sox, who were coming off of a Coors Field series last night, laid an egg. And a lot of times in baseball, you expect these teams to have some pride and bounce back and come back. I don't think the White Sox have that. I mean, I know for a fact, based on what they've done all season long, they have no pride whatsoever. So I think right now you're currently just getting a discount on the much better team. Maybe still a little bit of questions about Wu, but I have no questions about Bryan Wu. It's something FanDuel specifically has a prop bet. They do this, I think, twice a week, normally Tuesdays and Fridays, for the daily strikeout leader. Now, Bryan Wu, when I checked earlier, was plus 4,400 to lead all starting pitchers in strikeouts. Obviously, that is a tall task, especially considering that this kid generally only pitches around 85 pitches. They're still pretty cognizant of that. Makes a ton of sense. But he was able to bring up 9 White Sox earlier this season, and based on the rest of the board and who I see has potential to rack up strikeouts, Wu is definitely atop of my list. So if you're getting 44 to 1, that's an angle I look at as well. But again, straight game line, I'm loving the Mariners today. Hot team, great pitcher, the team that's dead in the water. Just a combination that we're getting Seattle minus $155, minus $152. I take that all day long.
Great breakdown there from my man Eric Pauly of thegoldsheet.com. And as we mentioned, you can check out Gold Sheet TV. And this does it for another edition of First Pitch. Big thanks to the crew here of EP, Marco D'Angelo and Brian Power. The great thing is, you need more actionable info? How about getting ready for NFL preseason? The final week opening line report gets you ready for that right here on WagerTalk TV. We mentioned Gold Sheet TV and WagerTalk today. So all the tools you need and all the sports you love is just a click away right here on WagerTalk TV.